The sky above Narella 5 was deep purple, with golden clouds that floated slowly across the horizon. The land was quiet, soft, and glowing with blue grass. Giant crystal trees stood tall, reflecting the soft light of the twin suns. Lieutenant Jake. Ryan stepped out of the shuttle and placed his boot on the alien soil. He looked around. Everything about this planet felt like a dream. "This is it," he whispered. "First contact." Behind him, the rest of the human team followed. Scientists, translators, and peace officers, all wearing clean white suits. The humans had come to Narella 5 to meet a new alien race, the Vailari. No one had seen them face to face yet. All past contact had been through screens and messages. The Vailari were known to be intelligent, peaceful, and highly advanced. But they were also secretive. Even now, Jake had no idea what they looked like under their armor. Jake's job was simple: stay alert, protect the team, and act as a diplomatic escort. But deep inside, he was nervous and curious. A soft humming sound came from the distance. Then, from the glowing hills, a group of tall figures appeared. They walked in perfect harmony, their silver armor shining in the sunlight. Their faces were hidden behind smooth, full helmets that had no eyes or mouths. They looked calm, controlled, almost like living statues. At the center of the group stood a taller figure. Her armor was decorated with gold lines and smooth white gems. She moved gracefully, like the wind itself. "That must be their queen," one of the scientists whispered. Jake nodded. Yes, it had to be her. The two groups met on a clear, flat platform made of crystal stone. The human captain stepped forward and gave a respectful bow. "We come in peace," she said. The queen tilted her head. Her voice echoed through a small speaker on her chest. "We accept your welcome," she said. "I am Queen Saravel of the Vailari. You are welcome on our world." Her voice was calm, soft, and musical. It had no accent, yet it sounded unlike anything Jake had ever heard before. The queen's tone was thoughtful, like someone who had seen many things but still listened carefully to every word. Talks began. The humans and Vailari spoke about peace, trade, and knowledge. The queen answered each question with grace. She spoke of harmony, balance, and her people's love for beauty and wisdom. Jake stayed quiet, standing to the side, watching everything. But his eyes kept returning to the queen. He didn't know why. She wasn't showing her face. Her voice was smooth, but that wasn't it. There was something else. The way she stood, the way she listened, the way she spoke kindly, even when discussing serious matters. As the sun began to set, the meeting came to an end. The queen stepped forward. "As a sign of trust," she said, "I will show you who I am." Slowly, with great care, she raised her hands and removed her helmet. Gasps filled the air. Her face was unlike anything Jake had imagined. Her skin was smooth and softly glowing, a pale silver with hints of light blue. Her eyes were large and violet, shaped like teardrops. Her hair floated gently behind her, like strands of moonlight. But it wasn't just her beauty that made everyone pause. It was the peace in her expression. She looked at Jake. Just for a second, their eyes met. And in that quiet moment, Jake felt something he could not explain. He had seen many worlds. He had met many beings. But no one had ever made him feel this way. His heart beat a little faster. His breath caught in his throat. She smiled. Just a small, gentle smile. Then she put her helmet back on. The meeting ended. The humans were given a place to stay in the nearby city. It was made of floating stones and glowing lights, shaped like waves in the wind. Later that night, Jake sat by the window looking out at the alien sky. He remembered the queen's face, her voice, her eyes. He didn't know what it meant. He didn't believe in love at first sight. But something had changed in him, and when he received a message from his captain saying, "You've been chosen to stay on Nirella 5 as our official human liaison to the Queen," he didn't hesitate. Jake smiled. "I'll stay," he said, not just because it was his duty, but because he wanted to see her again. The city of the Velari floated above the ground like a dream. Shining platforms moved without sound. Clear walkways curved through tall, glowing towers. Gentle lights followed every step, and soft music played in the air. Music that seemed to come from the buildings themselves. Lieutenant Jake Rion walked through the city with wide eyes. Everything felt calm, peaceful, and beautiful. But it was not the lights or music that filled his thoughts. It was the Queen. Since their first meeting, Jake had been thinking about her. Queen Saravel, the way she had looked at him, the quiet smile, the calm voice that made him forget everything else. Now, he had been chosen as the official human liaison. That meant staying on Nirella 5, living among the Vailari, learning their ways, and most of all, speaking with the Queen. Jake was nervous. What would she say? Did she remember him? Did she notice his eyes watching her? Did she feel anything? A soft sound pulled him out of his thoughts. A Vailari attendant stood at the entrance of a crystal bridge. "Lieutenant Rion," the attendant said politely. "Her Majesty invites you to the royal garden." Jake nodded. Of course. He followed the attendant across floating bridges and into a large open area filled with trees of light. Flowers glowed in the air like fireflies. The sky above was pink and gold. In the center of the garden stood Queen Saravel. She was alone. Jake walked forward and bowed slightly. "Your Majesty," the Queen turned to him. Her helmet was off again. Her silver-blue skin shimmered under the sky. "Please," she said. "No need for titles. You are our guest. You may call me Saravel." Jake hesitated. "Saravel," he said quietly. She smiled. "That is better." They began to walk slowly through the garden. For a while, neither of them spoke. The soft wind moved through the glowing leaves. A small bird made of light flew past. Finally, Saravel looked at Jake. "You do not speak much, Lieutenant." Jake laughed nervously. "Sorry, I'm just still amazed by all this. It's beautiful." "I'm glad you think so," she said. "This garden is special. It is where I come to think, to breathe, to be myself. Not as a queen, just as Saravel." Jake looked at her with surprise. "Even a queen needs space to be herself?" She nodded slowly. "Especially a queen." They stopped by a small pool of water. It was clear and still, showing their reflections. Saravel sat on a stone bench and looked up at the sky. "Tell me, Jake, what is Earth like?" Jake smiled. "It's a mix of things. Busy cities, deep oceans, tall mountains. Some places are cold, others are warm. But what I love most about Earth is its people. We're strange, I guess. Loud, curious, always asking questions." "Questions?" Saravel repeated softly. "Yes, I've noticed. Humans are not afraid to ask." Jake sat beside her. "What about the Velari? Do your people not ask questions?" "We used to," she said. "Long ago. But over time we chose silence. We believe silence brings peace." Jake looked thoughtful. "Maybe. But sometimes silence hides the truth." Saravel turned to him. Her violet eyes were calm, but deep. "I find you interesting, Jake Rion." Jake blinked. "Me?" "Yes. You are careful, yet open. You are strong, but you do not try to control. You listen. Most visitors only speak. You are different." Jake's face turned slightly red. He laughed softly. "I guess I just want to understand." Saravel stood up and walked slowly toward a strange tree. Its leaves were made of silver light. She touched the trunk gently. "Do humans feel things quickly?" she asked. Jake tilted his head. "What do you mean?" Saravel turned to face him. "When I removed my helmet, you looked at me in a way I have not seen before." Jake stood still. I didn't mean to be rude." "You were not," she said calmly. "But your eyes, they said something." Jake hesitated. "It's just, I saw something beautiful, not just on the outside. You were strong and kind. I think I felt something." Saravel was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. "I see." She stepped closer. "Do all humans look at someone like that when they feel something they cannot explain?" Jake's heart beat faster. "Not always," he said. "But sometimes when something feels right, we just know." Saravel looked down at the glowing flowers near her feet. "In my world, feelings are kept inside. We are taught not to show too much. But lately, I have started to wonder if that is wise." Jake smiled gently. "Feelings aren't always easy, but they help us connect." Saravel looked at him again. Her eyes were soft. "I wish to understand more," she said, "about your world, about your people." "I'd be happy to share," Jake said. "Then tomorrow," she said, "you will walk with me again." Jake bowed his head. "I would be honored." Saravel turned, and her silver hair floated behind her like moonlight. As she walked away, Jake stood still, watching her. The garden glowed brighter somehow. Or maybe it was just the way he felt inside. Something was beginning. Something strange, but good. And Jake knew deep in his heart that he wanted to follow it wherever it led. The sun was low on Narella 5. It painted the sky with soft pink and gold. A warm breeze passed through the floating city. It made the glowing leaves shimmer like stars. Lieutenant Jake Ryan waited near the crystal bridge. His heart beat a little, faster than usual. Today was his third meeting with Queen Saravel. But this time, she had not asked him to meet in the palace garden. She had said something different. "Tomorrow, meet me at the Garden of Secrets. Come alone." Now, the royal attendant appeared. Without a word, he led Jake across several moving platforms. They floated high above the ground and past tall towers. Finally, they reached a quiet, hidden place behind the palace. It was a small island of land surrounded by clear air. No guards, no lights, just soft green plants and trees that seemed to whisper in the wind. Saravel stood near the edge of the garden, facing a glowing pond. She was not wearing her helmet. Her silver-blue face glowed gently in the fading light. Jake stepped forward. "You asked me to come." She turned and smiled softly. "Yes. Thank you for trusting me." Jake looked around. "What is this place?" Saravel walked toward a strange tree. Its bark was smooth and silver. Its leaves changed color slowly, from blue to green to white. "This garden is known only to the royal family," she said. "It is passed down through generations. No visitors, no advisors, no guards." Jake's eyes widened. "Why bring me here?" Saravel touched a branch. "Because I want to speak freely." She sat on a stone bench, and Jake joined her. For a while, they said nothing. The silence wasn't heavy, it was peaceful, like the wind was listening. Then Saravel spoke. "I was chosen to be queen at a young age," she said. "I learned to lead with calm and control. I was taught not to feel too much, not to trust too quickly." Jake listened quietly. "But lately," she continued, "since meeting you, I feel like something inside me has changed. I find myself thinking about things I was told to ignore. Jake leaned forward. What kind of things? Saravel looked into the glowing pond. Kindness, laughter, music, warm feelings. These are not often spoken about in our culture. We value balance and peace, but perhaps we have lost something important. Jake smiled a little. You haven't lost it. It's still there. You just needed a reason to look for it again. Saravel turned to him. And you? Are that reason? Jake's breath caught for a second. He had never expected a queen to speak so openly, but now, sitting beside her, in this quiet garden, he felt something true. You've shown me a side of yourself most people will never see, he said. I won't forget that. She gave a small nod. Then she stood and walked to a small plant, near the water. It had no leaves, only a soft blue glow. This is a truth flower, she said. It only blooms when spoken to with honesty. Jake raised an eyebrow. Really? She smiled. Would you like to try? Jake stepped forward. He looked at the flower and took a breath. I feel like I was meant to come here, he said. Not just to meet your people, but to meet you. The flower opened, just a little. Saravel's eyes sparkled. Jake looked at her. You said you were taught to hide feelings. Well, I wasn't. I was taught to speak from the heart. He paused, then added, and right now, my heart is telling me you're someone I want to understand, more and more. The flower opened wider, glowing brighter than before. Saravel looked at Jake. Her voice was soft. Then we are alike. More than I thought. Suddenly, a quiet sound came from the trees. Both turned their heads. A small drone floated nearby. It had no lights and made almost no noise, but Jake saw it. Saravel frowned. That should not be here. Jake stepped closer to protect her, but the drone disappeared quickly into the air. Saravel's face became thoughtful. Someone was watching us. Jake's voice was steady. What does that mean? It means not everyone agrees with me, she said. Not everyone wants the queen to be close to a human. Jake sighed. I understand. Saravel looked at him again. But I do not care what they think. He smiled. Neither do I. She stepped closer. I do not know what this connection between us means yet, but I want to keep discovering it. Jake nodded. So do I. They stood together in the garden, the air calm around them. The truth flower glowed softly behind them, now fully open. And in that quiet space, two souls from two different worlds began to trust each other. Not just as leaders or diplomats, but as friends, maybe even something more. Every morning, he walked the shining paths of the Vailari city with quiet joy. Every evening, he met Queen Saravel, sometimes in the palace, sometimes in the secret garden. They talked about Earth, about the stars, about music, and about life. They laughed, they listened, they grew closer. But while the garden was peaceful, the rest of the world was not. Far above the planet, the human ship Horizon Star circled in quiet orbit. Its captain, Commander Eli Ward, watched every report with sharp eyes. He had begun to notice something strange. Jake's messages were different, shorter, less formal, and the Queen's behavior, too, was changing. She spent more time alone. She ignored the advice of her royal council more than usual. Back on Nirella 5, some of the Vailari council members had also noticed. One of them, Advisor Talven, stood in a round chamber deep inside the palace. His silver robes flowed like water as he whispered to the others. The queen is too close to the human, he said. She lets him walk in royal gardens. She speaks to him without guards. This is not tradition. Another advisor nodded. The people will notice soon. Talvin's eyes narrowed. If she chooses him over her duty, it could destroy everything we have built. He turned to a dark screen and gave a silent command. A tiny drone launched into the sky. Its wings were silent, its camera sharp. Jake was unaware of the growing tension. That morning he met Saravel in a room filled with light crystals. They sat on smooth white cushions, sipping a warm drink that tasted like sweet air. Saravel was quiet today. Her eyes watched the light dance on the walls. Jake noticed. "Is something wrong?" She gave a soft sigh. "Some of my advisors are not pleased. They say I am breaking old ways." Jake set down his cup. "Because of me?" Saravel shook her head gently. "No, because of what you represent. Change, emotion, openness." Jake looked down. "I never wanted to cause trouble." She leaned forward. "You have not caused trouble. You have reminded me of something I forgot." He looked into her eyes. "What's that?" "That I am not only a queen, I am a person. I have the right to feel." Jake gave a soft smile. "You do." Saravel stood and walked toward the window. Outside, the sky was a soft blue. Far in the distance, birds of light flew in quiet circles. "I fear the choice I must make soon," she said. Jake walked beside her. "What choice?" "Whether I lead as they expect me to, or as I wish to." Before Jake could answer, a chime rang. A message had arrived. Saravel touched a small crystal panel. A calm voice spoke. "Your Majesty, a formal protest has been filed by Councillor Talvin. He requests a private meeting with you and the human guest." Saravel's expression grew still. "So it begins." Later that evening, Jake stood beside Saravel in the Grand Council Hall. The room was round and bright, with high walls of clear crystal. 12 Valari advisors stood in a circle. Each wore long robes and emotionless expressions. Councillor Talvin stepped forward. "Your Majesty," he said with a bow. "We come with concern, not disrespect." Saravel nodded. "Speak freely." Talvin looked at Jake, then back at the Queen. "You have grown close to the human. Too close. It puts our future at risk. Our people notice, they talk, they fear." Jake stayed quiet. He knew this moment mattered. Saravel replied calmly, "Is it wrong to learn from others? To open our hearts instead of hiding them?" Talvin raised his voice just a little. "It is not wrong to learn, but it is wrong to forget who we are. This man is not Vailari. He cannot understand our ways." Jake finally spoke. His voice was steady. "I don't want to change your ways," he said. "I only want to understand them and share mine. Isn't that what peace means?" Some of the advisors looked thoughtful, but Talvin's face was cold. "You speak of peace," he said, "but peace requires balance. And this," he pointed to Saravel and Jake, "is not balance. It is danger." Saravel stepped forward. "Then I choose the danger," she said. "If it means being honest, if it means leading with my whole heart." Gasps echoed through the hall. Talvin bowed stiffly. "Then the council must prepare a vote." Saravel nodded. "Let them vote. But I will not hide who I am." Later, as they walked back to the private garden, Jake looked at her with concern. "That was bold," he said. Saravel smiled, though her eyes were tired. "It was necessary." Jake paused. "If they vote against you, what happens?" She looked up at the stars. "I may be removed, or forced to follow their will." Jake touched her hand gently. "I'm sorry." She turned to him. "Don't be. I would rather lose a crown than lose myself." Jake felt warmth in his chest. He didn't have the right words, but he knew something now. This wasn't just friendship. This was something deeper, and he would stand by her, no matter what the council decided. The Vailari High Council was meeting again, this time not to talk, but to decide. They would vote on whether Queen Saravel could continue to rule, or if she had broken too many traditions by growing close to a human. That human, Lieutenant Jake Rian stood outside the council chamber, waiting. He could hear soft voices inside. He didn't understand all the Vailari language, but he could feel the mood. It was serious, heavy. He looked at his reflection in the smooth crystal wall. His face looked tired, not from work, but from worry. In just a few weeks, this planet had become more than a mission. It had become home. And the Queen, she had become more than just a ruler to him. She was a friend, a connection, maybe something even more. The doors finally opened. Saravel stepped out, her face calm but her eyes a little distant. Jake stood up straight. What happened? They could not agree, she said. 6 voted to keep me. 6 voted to replace me. Jake frowned. So what? Now? She looked at him quietly. They've given me a choice. What kind of choice? Saravel took a deep breath. I must either return to tradition and end personal relations with outsiders, or step down as queen. Jake's eyes widened. They're asking you to choose between your crown and me? Saravel nodded slowly. Not just you. What you represent. Change. Emotion. A new future. Jake didn't know what to say. For a moment, silence filled the hallway. Then he spoke. You don't have to choose me. I'll leave if it helps you stay queen. Saravel looked at him sharply. And abandon everything we've built? Jake shook his head. No, I just don't want to be the reason you lose your place. Your people need you. She stepped closer. Jake, I have worn the crown for years. I have led with order, with calm, with silence. But now, because of you, I have found something more powerful than silence. He looked into her violet eyes. What's that? She smiled softly. Truth. Just then, a voice came through a small crystal device near the wall. Attention! The Queen will now present her final decision in the council hall. Saravel turned to Jake. Come with me. He followed her. The council hall was full, not just of advisors, but citizens, workers, and young Vailari students. The news had spread. Queen Saravel would make her choice today. The hall was bright, but no one spoke. Saravel walked to the center. Jake stood a few steps behind her. She raised her hand. I have heard your voices, she said, and I respect your concerns. I understand that my connection with a human may feel strange. It may feel dangerous. But fear should never lead us. Some of the council members looked uneasy. Others leaned forward, curious. I will not hide my feelings, she continued, and I will not step away from what I believe is right. She turned slightly, looking at Jake. This human has shown me more than any advisor ever has. He reminded me that leaders are not statues. We are not made of stone. We must feel. We must grow. Jake felt his heart beating faster. Saravel looked back at the crowd. That is why I choose to remain your queen. Not in silence, but with truth. And I choose to continue my friendship with Lieutenant Jake Ryan. Gasps filled the room. Some shocked, some pleased, some uncertain. But no one said a word against her. Counselor Talvin stood up. His face was unreadable. He bowed slowly. Then the council will respect your decision. Saravel nodded. Thank you. Later on the palace balcony, Jake stood beside Saravel. The sky was turning orange as the suns began to set. I didn't expect you to do that, Jake said, quietly. I didn't expect to feel this strongly, Saravel replied. They stood in silence for a moment. Jake looked at her. So what happens now? She turned to him. Now, we build something new. A shared space. A center for learning, where humans and Vailari can teach each other. Jake smiled. You're serious? She nodded. Yes, and I want you to lead it with me. He paused. But that means staying here, leaving Earth behind. Saravel looked down. I understand if that's too much. Jake was quiet. He thought about the stars, the distance from Earth, the life he had known. Then he looked at her. You once said I reminded you that you are more than just a queen, he said. Well, you reminded me that I'm more than just a soldier. He stepped closer. I'm staying. Not just for duty, not for a job. I'm staying for you. Saravel smiled. A soft breeze moved her silver hair. I'm glad, she whispered. They stood side by side as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, and, for the first time, both of them felt the same thing. Hope, not just for themselves, but for both of their worlds. The once quiet, floating city was now full of new life. Human scientists and Violari thinkers worked side by side. Children from both worlds played together in the learning gardens. Music from Earth mixed with the soft crystal tones of the Violari, air songs. At the center of this change stood Queen Saravel, and Jake, no longer just a visitor, but now an honored guest and friend to her people. Together, they had opened the Unity Center, a beautiful place made of white stone and glowing crystal. It floated peacefully above a lake of light. Inside, there were classrooms, music rooms, story domes, and even a space garden where young minds could learn about both Earth and Narella 5. Jake taught the first class. He stood before a group of young students, half human, half Violari. Behind him was a screen showing pictures of Earth, green forests, oceans, birds, and cities full of light. On Earth, he explained, we learn with questions. We explore, we imagine, we build things. But more than that, we share, we laugh, we care for each other. One of the young Violari raised her hand. Do humans cry? Jake smiled gently. Yes, we cry when we are sad, but also when we are very happy. Another child, a boy from Earth, asked, Do the Violari tell jokes? The class laughed. Even Saravel, who was standing in the back, smiled. Not yet, she said with a playful tone. But perhaps it's time we learn. Later that day, Jake and Saravel walked through the royal garden, not the hidden one, but a new space they had built together. It was open to all, a place where anyone, royal or not, could come to think, to sit, or to speak from the heart. The garden had trees from both worlds, silver-leafed Velari trees, and tall green ones from Earth. Flowers glowed in the moonlight, and soft wind bells rang in the breeze. Jake sat on a bench near a large glowing tree. It had grown from the truth flower Saravel once showed him. Now it stood tall, its wide branches shining with soft blue light. This place feels alive, he said. Saravel sat beside him. That's because it is. It grows stronger with each honest word spoken here. Jake looked at her. I've never been this honest in my life, she turned to face him. Neither have I. They were quiet for a moment. Then Saravel said, When you first arrived, I never expected this. Jake chuckled. Neither did I. You were just another visitor, another outsider, and you were just a voice behind a helmet, Jake replied. Saravel smiled. But everything changed the moment I removed it. Jake nodded. Yes, that moment changed everything. She looked into his eyes. What did you see, really, that first time? Jake thought for a moment, then answered softly. I saw someone who carried so much, but still stood with peace in her heart. I saw strength, beauty, and something I couldn't name at the time. Now I know. It was kindness. Saravel looked down, almost shy. I was afraid that day, she admitted. Afraid to show myself. Afraid to feel. But I'm glad I did. Jake reached into his pocket and pulled out a small object. It was a smooth stone, shaped like a teardrop, with the flags of Earth and the Violari carved into it. I had this made, he said. It's a symbol. 2 worlds, 1 future. Saravel touched the stone gently. I want to give it to you, Jake said, as a promise. She looked at him. A promise of what? He smiled. That I'll stay. That I'll keep learning, teaching, and walking beside you. As long as I'm welcome. You are always welcome, she said softly. They sat under the tree as the stars above began to shine. Weeks passed. The Unity Center grew. More humans arrived. Artists, farmers, teachers. The Vailari opened their libraries. Trade began between the two planets. There were small disagreements, of course, but nothing that couldn't be solved through honest conversation. For the first time in many years, both worlds felt hope, not from machines, not from weapons, but from simple understanding. One day, Saravel stood before a gathering of leaders from both worlds. She wore a light robe, no crown, no armor. She spoke calmly. We come from different skies, but we share the same light. Let us not look at our differences with fear, but with wonder. Let us build together, not as rulers and guests, but as friends. The room filled with applause. Later, as she walked through the Unity Center garden with Jake, she said, "This is the future I dreamed of, even before I knew I wanted it." Jake looked at her. "This is only the beginning." They stopped, beneath the truth tree. It glowed softly, listening. Saravel touched one of its branches. "Jake? Yes?" She looked at him gently. "What do humans call it? When two hearts feel the same, even from different worlds." Jake smiled. "We call it love." Saravel gave a quiet smile. "Then I think I am learning to speak your language." Jake didn't say anything. He simply took her hand, and they stood together beneath the glowing leaves. And in that moment, with stars above and peace below, it didn't matter that they were from different planets. What mattered was that they had chosen each other.